Hello everybody, welcome to the Real Games Cast, episode 2. I'm your host, Mitch Smith, alongside the most majestic name in the business, Jordan Augustus Dean, and I should have been in the infantry, Cadet Tristan Shuler. This is episode 2 of the Real Games Cast. If you guys like what we're doing here, you can go support us over at patreon.com/realgames. You can also follow us on Twitter at Real Games Cast. We're also very excited this week to announce that we've joined with Dacutory Gaming, and this is a really exciting opportunity for us. Guys, is there anything you want to say about Dacutory that we can kind of tell the audience? First off, I do want to remind everyone, this is an exclusive partnership. You can only get our stuff now from Dacutory. Our YouTube channel, all that stuff's going away. You can only get us at Dacutory Gaming. Guys, you want to chime in on this a little bit?
I just want to thank John for the amazing opportunity that he's given us. And
I was going to say I was on Mr. John Dunaway's Final Boss episode last semester, and so I had a lot of fun with that, and I'm great to say that we're now partnered with him and we can continue to do bigger and better things. So come and support us, guys, and support him too.
Speaking of that Final Boss, I heard Jared destroyed you.
Obviously,
It was a glitch.
But John really does. He brings a lot to our show. We had no idea what we were doing a week ago, or what we were getting ourselves into, and he brings an element that we really needed. Some guy that knows what he's doing, and he brings much better equipment to our show. It's a really good partnership for us, and we're really appreciative of the opportunity. With that, we are going to launch right into the show. Get started quick this week. As you know, we are a conversational podcast. What we want to do is bring you 3 topics every week from me, Jordan Dean, and Shuler, where our topics fall in the realm of entertainment. We will talk about video games, we'll talk about movies, we'll talk about television, and we'll talk about comic books, because really that's all the 3 of us ever do, is read or watch or play. So, Jordan, you want to kick off the show? What are you bringing to the table this week? What are we going to talk about?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie, is Ghostbusters. So I was super pumped when they said they were making Ghostbusters 3 about 10 years ago, and then it turned into a reboot, which then turned into an all-female led cast, and there aren't that many comedic actresses that I completely adore. But when the Sony leak happened, and they said that Jennifer Lawrence and Emma Stone were names being thrown around,
yeah.
I got super excited for it. Only for them to crush my dreams last week when they announced the actual cast. Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, which I'm not a fan of, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones. Wiig and McKinnon, I'm huge fans of. They're extremely funny. Kate McKinnon is the star of SNL right now. She's about the only one that's doing any good right now, and it kind of broke my heart because I really didn't want Melissa McCarthy to be on that movie. But my topic is, why is everyone rebooting like great franchises?
Why are reboots happening?
Yeah.
Well, reboots are happening because Hollywood has no original ideas.
Well, obviously, but I mean, surely there's still some great directors.
Well, I mean,
Christopher Nolan makes.
Christopher Nolan, everything he does is completely original.
Yeah.
Inception is a pretty original idea. Interstellar.
And he even did his own thing with the Batman films.
Yeah.
He did his own thing.
He did, especially in the sense that he really has no connections to the comics at all.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Batman's origin and some names, he didn't. I mean, look at Bane.
And they say that the Nolan trilogy was its own universe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what you're talking about with the reboots are happening because of money. That's obvious. Reboots are always happening because of money, because there's money in reboots. Look at Star Trek. I think Star Trek's the best example of a reboot really done right. J.J. Abrams took a franchise that was dead in the water. Yeah, it was dead. You hadn't seen a Star Trek movie in 7 years.
And made them into something that's
Star Trek in the Darkness.
Yeah, Star Trek in the Darkness was a fantastic movie.
Yeah, and the first one was even better than that.
Yeah.
But, of course, Trekkies didn't like it. Because it kind of varied from what they know from the original series.
Yeah.
But
Well, see, if something's continuing on, maybe it is time for a change to give a new, fresh audience something new to look at. For example, Godzilla. Movie came out last year. One of the best movies I saw last year. I love Godzilla. The last movie that came out for a Godzilla movie was in 1999. He's not even known as Godzilla anymore. He's just Zilla because of how bad that movie is.
Are you talking about the 1999 Matthew Broderick masterpiece, Godzilla? I say that with complete sarcasm. Yeah, that movie was a complete disaster.
And of course, you got the Amazing Spider-Mans rebooting the Spider-Man trilogy that happened
which is
just a few years ago.
Which is probably going to get rebooted again by Marvel.
Yeah, so it's just like, and then what else has been rebooted? You got Star Trek.
You got Star Trek.
Oh, King Kong. King Kong's got the new. And see, that's another thing. They're rebooting them, but then they're saying, "Oh, it's a prequel. Oh, it's a sequel. Oh, it's kind of a
like what's going on with the Planet of the Apes."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes is a reboot.
The Planet of the Apes is actually a good example. I feel like of a reboot. It's gone right. It's doing well. It's making a lot of money. They've been good movies. What are some reboots that you feel have failed that have really
Halloween.
Halloween is a very good example of a very
I really wanted to like it because I love the Halloween movies growing up, and I really wanted to see a more modern version of that was really good.
Well, Rob Zombie just made a gory, as gory as he can make a movie.
Yeah.
He didn't care about story there at all. Some other reboots that you feel didn't really work for you.
I really can't think of any that come to mind because the reboots I usually don't watch reboots, but the ones I have seen like Godzilla, the Planet of the Apes, I like them. But obviously one on a lot of people's minds is the Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man and whatnot. I personally liked them, even though I did feel like some of the characters in the second one were written wrong. But it was still a good pair of movies to me. But now they're about to get rebooted, and it just seems like there's no. We can't forget the Disney princesses. They're all being rebooted into live action.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good example. You've got Maleficent, which was a very odd, just total retelling of that story. Complete retelling there.
Now you got Beauty and the Beast is coming out.
With Emma Watson.
Yeah.
That movie.
I mean, they're casting
Emma Watson made me suddenly interested in that movie.
But then again, a lot of people got interested in Maleficent because of Angelina Jolie, and that didn't exactly work out all too well.
A reboot happening for me, hopefully in the future. Chris Pratt as Indiana Jones. I don't really want them to reboot that franchise, but if Chris Pratt did get the role, I think he'd be able to pull it off and make a somewhat enjoyable movie.
I agree. For Indy, you can't play Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford can't do it anymore. Let's be honest. This guy's what, 65, 64?
Yeah.
He's in his 60s. Chris Pratt is one of the hottest things in Hollywood. He's huge coming off Guardians. He's got the charisma to play Indiana Jones without a doubt. I did a reboot that didn't work for me. I want to bring this up real quick. It's RoboCop.
That was a pretty bad one.
That's a fantastic movie. The 1984 or 85. Either way, the 1980s movie is fantastic. It's gory, it's bloody, but it tells a really good story behind it of how the government can really control people's lives and stuff like that. This new one, the PG-13 rating, you could say it kind of killed that.
Yeah.
And that could be the big problem here. You're taking these classics that are R-rated, you're giving them a PG-13 rating, and you're putting handcuffs on them. You're restricting these people. The indie movies, I believe they're already PG-13.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
I'm sure that they will shoot for a PG rating with these next movies because they're going to want as many children and people like that in the audience as you can get. And that's going to open relatively, well, I'm not going to say open, but it's going to be filming while Uncharted is opening. The Uncharted movie that is in development, that has been in development for a long time, that's set to open 2016. Do you think Uncharted, if that becomes a successful franchise, can kind of steal some of that thunder from Chris Pratt and Indiana Jones if a big name is cast as Nathan Drake?
Well, what if the Indiana Jones, what if they turn that out to be, what if they end up casting Chris Pratt as Nathan Drake?
He already turned down the role.
He did? Okay. Well,
unfortunately. because Chris Pratt would have been fantastic in Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg's been the name most associated with it. I don't think Marky Mark would be too great.
He doesn't fit the.
He doesn't seem like Nathan Drake.
No.
I don't see why you don't say Nolan North.
Yeah.
You just cast Nolan North and Nathan Drake. He is Nathan Drake.
What's his name from Castle?
Nathan Fillion.
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah. Nathan Fillion's one of the names that has really been talked about a lot in that role. Jordan, back to the Ghostbusters reboot that you brought up originally. You said you don't like Melissa McCarthy. You don't like her in this movie. Do you think she was added because of her comedic talents, or because she is a big name that they can put on a poster and say, look, Melissa McCarthy's in this movie, you want to see it?
I think it's more to, because they could have found funnier people, but they also could have found more, put up Jennifer Lawrence's name there.
Right.
And that has a bigger draw than Melissa McCarthy.
But is that a movie that J-Law really wants to do right now?
Well, it does kind of seem like something that she would be interested in doing, knowing her personality and how crazy
given her personality, I agree. But given the roles that Jennifer Lawrence typically does, could you see her in a comedy with Ghostbusters?
Yeah, I can understand where you're going with that.
Emma Stone, I can believe, because in one movie she's a zombie slayer, and in the next she's Peter Parker's girlfriend.
Yes. Now Emma Stone, I feel like is much more likely to be involved in that project.
But I don't think Emma Stone would have had the same draw that
is there anyone in Hollywood that has the same draw power as Jennifer Lawrence besides maybe The Rock?
Well, true.
They could have just had Rock wear a wig and dress up and be a Ghostbuster.
Let's not give Michael Bay any ideas. Calm down. So what?
Thanks for putting that picture in my head.
Oh, you're welcome.
So rebooting movies. Let's try to wrap this up here with rebooting movies. Do you think rebooted movies are a good thing for Hollywood, in the sense that this generation, that's our generation, maybe the one younger than us, that next generation, that didn't really get experience indie and things like that growing up, is this good for them in the sense of they get to experience those stories that we did, even if it is with new people?
Go ahead.
I believe it is. I never watched all those Godzilla movies growing up, but now I can say that I found, and the last one was 1999. I was 4 when that came out, so I can honestly say that now the one that just came out in 2014, I'm in love with the franchise. I was like, I've been doing research, been trying to look all about it, so I'm looking forward to the next Godzilla movie. The Planet of the Apes movies. How old are those?
60s, 70s,
and they are redoing them fantastically.
Right.
I don't watch many bad horror reboot movies, so they seem to be doing okay for me. I'm liking the updated stories and being able to watch what my parents got to watch as children.
Okay. All right. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Real Games Cast. We're going to move on to our second topic of the show. We're going to go over to Tristan Shuler. Shuler, what are we discussing this week for your topic on our show?
Okay, so just last week I got Dying Light. Loving the game so far. It's basically parkours and zombies. So who doesn't like that?
Parkour.
Nice Office reference. Anyways, so during the day, the zombies mainly serve as a nuisance. But at nighttime, it becomes a entirely different game. It's survival horror. They evolve, they're able to run just as fast as you, they can jump and anything. They're scary. That brings me to my topic. What is the future of horror video games? Last year, I just put out a few things. Last year we had Outlast come to the consoles. Then you had Outlast Whistleblower. You had Evil Within, PT, Amnesia, the second Amnesia, the Amnesia sequel, Alien Isolation, and then a couple indie games like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, This War of Mine, and Daylight. So this year we've got quite a few to look forward to. We got Bloodborne coming out in March, which I'm very excited for. Got Soma, which is made by the people who made Amnesia. We've got Until Dawn, Fatal Frame 5, Doom, Outlast 2, and H1Z1. Those are just a few.
Isn't the Order 1886 technically survival horror? Isn't that the genre is being listed as?
Yes, it's being survival horror.
That's definitely the next one. I
can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good game.
Now what I'm saying is, how should horror games focus as they move in? Should they be focused on strictly atmosphere? Should they focus on big enemies? Should they focus on, like Doom? Should they have a lot of guns but then have scarce ammunition and really powerful monsters? Or should there not even be any monsters or enemies at all, and the only thing that scares you is the atmosphere and the scenery?
Well, I feel like the last survival horror game that really nailed it and really got it right in terms of everything, of weapons, it had the right monsters, it had the right atmosphere, and it had the right setting, was Dead Space. The original Dead Space.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I feel like Dead Space 2 got they got a little more actiony. It was still survival horror. Dead Space 3 was not a survival horror game. Dead Space 3 was an
Especially
action
when
game.
they put in co-op with it.
Right. You bring in co-op, you bring in the ability to make those crazy weapons that you eventually can make 3/4 of the way through the game.
Mm-hmm.
You just walk through the game with. And if you pre-order the game, you got one of those weapons. I walked through that game. I don't think I died 3 times the entire time. The original Dead Space was a genuinely creepy experience.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I played PT. I really enjoyed PT.
Mm-hmm.
But that felt more like a puzzle game
Yes.
than it
It
did
did.
survival horror. It was just a creepy puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
The future of horror games could start with Silent Hills. Sorry. I feel like Silent Hills could be the next really great survival horror title. But in what aspect do they need to go? I feel like atmosphere has to be priority number one. I don't think you can have convincing survival horror without a genuinely creepy atmosphere to play the game in.
Well, look at Outlast, the insane asylum, the abandoned insane asylum that was supposedly haunted. That was I couldn't sleep for days after I played it.
I mean, think about that game. What did you really do? You ran and took pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you done over the course of the game, but it was freaky. It really was
Because
of the atmosphere and the setting of the game.
Another thing that horror games should really start to pick up on is you can't fight back.
Yeah.
What made the thing Outlast so scary? I mean, I guess if I had a machine gun with me,
Right.
that the big guy wouldn't have felt so threatening.
Mm-hmm.
But when your only thing to do is to run and hide, I'm scared to death to play that game. I haven't finished it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just too scared at a point where I just can't play it anymore.
I didn't even start it. I read what the game was about, and I was like, nope.
But then there's some like The Evil Within.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be a reimagining of survival horror. There comes a point when I think survival horror isn't really horror, it's just vulgar and creepy. Because the guy who made Evil Within is the guy who did the Resident Evil games
Yep.
and whatnot.
Up through one through 4.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are some creepy freaking monsters in that.
Oh, yeah.
That show.
But
game.
The Evil Within, I didn't feel like it was a very good video game. I played it. It had the weird letterbox format.
Oh, the black.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all because I feel like you're taking too much of the screen away from me. How much? I mean,
Right.
I guess that's what they were going for. You're watching an old vintage horror
To
movie.
me, it felt like a more cinematic experience than a
Mhm.
video game, and I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't think the game played well. One of the really good elements of Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil, was the brick controls of the first game. The game was so difficult to control that when you got in a difficult situation, you're trying to do things and the controls are kind of non-responsive, and I think it heightens the tension of the game. But the games now, they control so well, but I mean, if you went back to the brick controls of the original Resident Evil, would people even play it?
Well, they remade Resident Evil for
With-
the console.
About
Yes.
6 times.
The newest release actually has the
Brick
it-
controls
it-
built in.
Yes, it has the option of playing with brick controls or a more updated control scheme, which who knows how good that control scheme really is. Where do you think, Jordan, survival horror needs to go right now?
I think one of two places. One, of course, the not being able to fight back and just being completely on your own that you saw in Outlast. But I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil games, at least the games that I played from it. I really like how no matter what you do, you still always seem to have a lack of ammo. And that's one of the scariest things to me about the Resident Evil games is getting ready to fight a boss fight,
Right.
and having 6 shotgun shells and 15 machine gun rounds.
And you know that you have to plan every attack out meticulously to
Yeah.
defeat that boss.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be stuck.
Yeah. So I think if horror games stayed on that path, that the survival aspect of it, and then
So
the running.
what you're saying in short is that survival horror needs to be survival
Yes.
horror, not just a straightforward horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I believe is what new Resident Evil iteration games have been. Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6. They've been, I like to call it, they're not action adventure, they're not survival horror, but they're action horror games. Because they've got, I played Resident Evil 5. There was times when I was scared or I had a jump scare. And another good example, The Last of Us.
Uh-huh.
Of course, most of the game you're fighting the humans, but whenever you're with those clickers, those things scare me to death.
I hate clickers.
And then the way they kill you, just rip your throat out.
Right.
Action horror, I think, needs to become its own genre, where you can fit in things like Evil Within. Of course, it's labeled as survival horror, but then again, I feel like I have enough ammunition and whatnot. I'm able to take on any enemy that comes after me. I have a way of fighting back. If you have a way of fighting back, it should be action horror. If it's something like Outlast, where you don't, or Amnesia, that's survival horror.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break, everybody, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little more about where survival horror games needs to go. Stay tuned in right here to the Real Games Cast. Welcome back to the Real Games Cast. We're going to carry on with Tristan Shuler's topic of survival horror games and where they need to go in the future. Sure, right before the break, you brought up the breaking survival horror down into genres.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to continue from there a little bit, and we're going to take horror by itself as its own genre, just horror. You brought up survival horror, you brought up action horror, which are two pretty well established genres already.
Mm-hmm.
Where else do you think we could go there? Where else could these games develop in the sense of what else could be a genre of horror games?
Okay, well, think horror. When you say a horror film, most people think Friday the 13th,
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street, because those are horror genre movies of their time. So, like Until Dawn comes out this year, right? So that is basically you are playing as 8 teenagers in a slasher film.
Mm-hmm.
So why not slasher horror? Or in Dying Light. Of course, I classify Dying Light as action horror. But
Should zombie games maybe be their own genre?
I don't know. Zombie games have been overdone so many times. It's getting to the point where what can you add to it that makes it refreshing? Because Dying Light had parkour.
I mean, Dying Light essentially is it's Far Cry with zombies in it.
It's Far Cry, Dead Island, and Mirror's Edge combined is what it is. Except instead of animals to hunt, there are special infected.
Okay.
So, but not like the scariest moment for me was never in a horde of zombies. It wasn't at nighttime being chased by a viral or a volatile. It was at the top of this humongous bridge. I was scared of falling.
And you did fall.
I did fall, and I survived because I don't know how.
It's the video
But
game.
anyways, what if games started taking actual phobias of people? Hydrophobia, fear of water. I mean, what if you put... I wouldn't know how to do it unless I really sat down and thought about it. What if games started taking those things and implementing them?
Could these the virtual reality consoles, such as Morpheus from Sony, or the Oculus Rift, or the new one that Microsoft revealed this week, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but could virtual reality be the next real step where we see the real resurgence, maybe, of survival horror? I mean, think about Outlast, which we've talked about quite a bit. If you took Outlast, you put that in a virtual reality headset, and you were the one in that body walking around, I mean, could that be a logical real next step? Like,
I mean, I'm already scared to death of Outlast, and it's in the first person view. Me controlling the character, I mean, I'd probably look like an idiot because I'd be trying to turn around and I'd be slapping at the air while I was trying to get I mean, horror games, if they are brought to virtual reality and you put that thing on, I feel that that would immerse you so greatly into the game that could honestly, it could be its own resurgence.
I mean, could it maybe be a little too far? I mean, we don't actually want people missing out on sleep because of a video game.
Well, I showed Shuler a video yesterday. I saw it on an iPhone, I think it was, and it was a guy who he had a it might have been the Project Morpheus thing, because he was playing, he was controlling something using a controller, but his character turned around and there was just someone like right up against the screen, and he threw the controller in the air and started like freaking out.
He waved in front of the VR,
right,
trying to get him to go away. So, horror games on a virtual reality, would they be too scary?
Right.
But then again, there's always those people out there that want that.
That's true.
So maybe it is. I personally don't think I would be trying it anytime soon, because I'm not going to go out and buy a virtual reality headset, because I don't know how much they are, but I'm perfectly content with my 2 PlayStations. But for those people that do invest in it and do want the survival horror context, I'd say it'd be a big thrill for them.
I mean, not only that, in the sense that you have to go out and you got to spend all this money and buy these headsets, but on the opposite of people that you said are always going to want that incredibly scary experience, you also have the complete opposite of that. You have people who won't play any kind of horror game because they're
scared.
They get scared at the sight of a spider on the ground. Is there any way that horror games could amend themselves to appeal to the people that don't like being scared? Is there anything? Because horror games in sales, they obviously are not going to do as well as Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, but they typically sell pretty low. Market expectations for horror games are much lower than they are other types of games, because they appeal to a very niche audience. What can survival horror do to broaden themselves to a much wider range of people?
Well, that's a tough one, because I mean, if you're trying to give a survival horror game to someone who doesn't want to be scared, I guess I'd just tell them to go play Nazi zombies. I mean,
or just play a more action oriented.
Yeah, like go play Resident Evil 5. Go play Resident Evil 6.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, go play those games. I mean, they are action, like I said, action horror games. They will give you elements of horror, but they are also very action oriented.
I feel like The Last of Us is a very good example of that, because the clickers and all those various infected, they were creepy to an extent, but you got to walk into a room and you got to survey the room and plan out your attack, and not a lot of jump scares, I guess would be the word, but still a genuinely creepy experience. 30 seconds or less, we're going to wrap up this topic. What is there anything else you want to add on survival horror and where it needs to go? Either one of you.
Just that, like I said, maybe take phobias of people and start incorporating them into it. Like I said with Dying Light, I think it's acrophobia is the fear of heights. They elemented that perfectly into it. Maybe if you put a survival horror game on a ship, put a little bit of hydrophobia in there. Give people's real life phobias and put them into games and make you live through that situation.
Right.
And I feel like that can give it a little boost that it needs.
I just want Until Dawn now. Not now.
Preach. Amen, brother. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up Shuler's topic for this week. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back in just a minute with topic number 3 this week. Thanks for tuning in to the Real Games Cast. And welcome back to the Real Games Cast. We're going to move on into topic 3, which is my topic. And guys, I want to talk about Naughty Dog, arguably the best developer in the world right now. They are getting ready to send out Uncharted 4. This, hopefully, I'm rumored to be October. Where does Naughty Dog go after Uncharted 4? Now, presumably you got The Last of Us 2, but what else could Naughty Dog do other than The Last of Us 2?
Are they're making The Last of Us 2? Is like that confirmed?
That's not really confirmed, but I mean, that's a pretty safe assumption.
I really don't think they should make a Last of Us 2, honestly.
Blasphemy.
I mean, if they're going to make a Last
Jordan has an opinion on it.
If you're going to make a Last of Us 2, don't make it about Joel and Ellie again.
Why not?
I mean, their story really, it tied up. That's one of the games that doesn't need a sequel.
I disagree completely.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Because-
going to be some kind of because Ellie knows that Joel is lying. Like you can just tell.
Spoiler alert at the end of the game.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
thank
anyone
you.
who hasn't played it by now isn't probably going to play it.
The game
anytime
is 2
soon.
years old. That's true.
1 year old for PlayStation 4 players.
But like Jordan said, you can really get the sense at the end of the game that Ellie can
Doesn't believe
tell
him.
that Joel is lying to her.
Oh, yeah.
But don't you want to see it all? How that comes back on Joel,
I mean,
or how that develops?
if they do make a Last of Us 2, yes, I'm gonna go buy it. But they really just, I don't think they have to. If they want to, fine, but they don't have to, is what I'm saying.
So you don't feel that it's really that that they can do it, but it's not really warranted. It's not something they should do.
Yeah, honestly, they should probably go for a new IP.
But did any of the new Uncharted really leave you thinking, man, that's not a story that I need to see continued?
Uncharted 2 didn't need to.
I mean, I don't think Uncharted 3 gave you any kind of a cliffhanger.
Uncharted 3 was supposed to leave it to where
It was.
it was done. I thought they were done.
The first one, Drake's Fortune, it didn't no real cliffhanger to it. So every entry that Naughty Dog's gave in most of their series don't really leave you with any.
Well, something with the Uncharted games and The Last of Us is The Last of Us was very story driven.
Yes.
So The Last of Us is the kind of a game that would kind of leave someone hanging. Uncharted is kind of like
It's the Indiana Jones
yeah,
video games.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, you have so many different stories that you could tell of Nathan Drake.
Now,
faking trailers.
there was a rumor. I believe I read it at some point last year that Naughty Dog was developing a new IP set in space, some kind of space
I forgot all
story.
about that.
Do you think Naughty Dog? Obviously, we all should probably have full confidence that Naughty Dog can deliver a good space game.
Mhm.
But what kind of story could Naughty Dog really tell in space that would grab your attention? Do you want to see an Uncharted in space, or do you want to see something more like The Last of Us in space, which really brings you to almost being Dead Space?
Yeah. I have faith in Naughty Dog that whatever they do, they can do it outstandingly.
Or alternatively, could they revert back to the Crash Bandicoot games that they originally developed,
What if
providing the
What if
license?
Naughty Dog's next project is a Crash Bandicoot reboot?
Well, the only problem with that is that they do not own the licenses. Activision bought those,
Okay, so that's out of the question.
but Activision's not made a Crash Bandicoot game since. You tell me, we'll both know.
I mean,
You know,
that's one of those games that just died out, and it would be hard for it to come back with a resurgence simply because
that's the main reason you didn't see Crash in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Somebody just couldn't acquire the license to use the character. But Naughty Dog being the best, I think the best developer in the world. Why waste that kind of talent on a Crash Bandicoot platformer at this point?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a
seems
complete waste
more
of
suited
studio.
for, what do you think? The people who made Resistance and Sunset Overdrive,
What if-
Insomniac.
What if Media Molecule, that's the company that made Little Big Planet, those games, what if they got the licenses to the Crash Bandicoot series? I mean, obviously they passed off Little Big Planet. They didn't make 3. They are working on something. It's not been revealed. But what studio would be best suited to make a new Crash Bandicoot game?
I think Insomniac would be pretty good. I mean, they already make Ratchet and Clank. They want another kind of
True.
cartoon character like that.
But I've never actually played Ratchet and Clank. Is that just like a true platformer, or? Because I mean, essentially,
I've never played any of them either.
Essentially, that's all Crash Bandicoot is a platformer.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank was heavily on platforming, but they're also really heavy on weapons.
Okay.
So, as you see, Resistance is heavy with weapons, Sunset Overdrive.
So back to Naughty Dog and what they may do next. We talked about space. What other settings do you think would be really interesting to see Naughty Dog do?
I would. Well, I'm an history major, so I would obviously like to see Naughty Dog take something historically, like maybe a game set in the Revolution or the Civil War or some other era like that.
Some narrative-driven history.
And an era that Assassin's Creed hasn't already tackled. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go back to the French Revolution.
Well, have you noticed something about Naughty Dog's games? Every single one of their games has some kind of a supernatural or element to it. All the Uncharted games, they have something. The first one was and they take a big twist on it too, because El Dorado is supposed to be a big city of gold. Turns out it's a statue that infects people with some kind of virus and turns them into crazy mutants. The second one, Shangri-La, well, it's an actual place, but it's overrun by these big purple dudes who shoot you with crossbows.
These big purple dudes.
And the third one had Jinn.
Yeah.
So, and then Last of Us obviously has the infected. So if Naughty Dog does do a game in space, it's pretty safe to show that they will probably put some kind of supernatural element into
some
it.
kind of, you would presume, alien contact causes some kind of mutation in someone, and you go from there.
But then would it feel like Last of Us in space?
Which essentially makes it a Dead Space game.
Yeah.
You know, which I said earlier. Other than space, you said history. What is a setting for you that you think Naughty Dog could pull off really well that hasn't been done before?
Let's see. Assassin's Creed, Visit Medieval, and then you had Renaissance, whatnot, Revolutionary. I was gonna say Wild West, but Red Dead Redemption kind of hit that. Okay. No, I really don't know. I mean, if you look at it,
well, sure. We're gonna give you time to think about it.
Okay.
We're gonna take our last break here with the Real Games Cast. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk to Shuler again, and he's gonna give me an answer on that. And then we're gonna talk a little bit more about things Assassin's Creed has done and how Naughty Dog could probably do them better. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back to the Real Games Cast. I put Shuler on the spot right before the break, and I'm going to come back to it because I want a firm answer. Shuler, what setting can Naughty Dog pull off for you that they haven't done before?
I got an answer for you, Joe.
It's John, but good try.
Sarcasm. Anyways, a supernatural setting. Not the show, not anything like that, but obviously you said they can put supernatural elements. Jinn in Uncharted 3, the clickers, the infected. So they do monsters right. So give them a game where, I don't know, put heaven and hell in there. Just a little bit of supernatural element.
Okay. And Jordan, you brought up Assassin's Creed and their historical tellings, and you brought up some periods that you would like to see Naughty Dog do, but the Assassin's Creed's already done them. I want to talk a little bit about what could Naughty Dog do better than Ubisoft. What time period is best suited for that linear gameplay that Naughty Dog brings to the table? You know, they're not going to give you an open world. That's not their thing.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you a strict story through a linear setting. What time period is best suited for that Assassin's Creed has done?
It's kind of the same as that. Okay, it's kind of the same of the time period that I wanted Naughty Dog to do, which is Civil War. That's my favorite area of history. But I think that Naughty Dog could really pull off a American Revolution game.
Okay.
And Assassin's Creed,
which is probably the biggest one that Ubisoft dropped the ball on.
Yeah.
Is the Revolution.
I mean, so many people was wanting that Revolution setting, and they actually. I always thought that Ubisoft killed the setting. Just some of the characters in the story was kind of underwhelming.
You know, I was really disappointed in the lack of revolutionary figures that popped up in the story.
Yeah.
You know, I never played the DLC, The Tyranny of King Washington.
I didn't either.
But I've been told that, you know, it introduced more elements of George Washington into the game, but not something that was really worth $10. I mean, how many of those founding father figures did we really see in that story? Paul Revere, I believe.
And then that mission was you driving the horse and he sat behind you. So
Yeah.
it was lame.
Yeah.
So they even put him. I don't know. Assassin's Creed 3 was supposed to be this big historical setting in the Revolutionary War period, but really it just came down to we won the war because of one guy, which is did not like it at all.
Right.
Because one guy doesn't change a war. Sorry.
So Assassin's Creed now they've done the setting in Jerusalem. You know, we had that story. I'll tell your story. We had
The Renaissance.
The Renaissance up through the Mediterranean with Constantinople and Assassin's Creed Revelations. We've had the American Revolution. What else we had?
Pirate Age.
The pirates.
Well, the colonial era.
We basically had the Pirates of the Caribbean in video game form.
French Revolution.
And now we got the French Revolution. If you had to pick one of those settings right now for a 10 to 12 hour linear story, which one is best suited for it?
Medieval.
So back to Altair's timeline and that kind of stuff.
Do something with medieval.
Can Naughty Dog pull
I'd like
off
to
this
see.
sword combat though that you would have to have? Because guns is not an element in that game.
Yeah.
And their gunplay in Uncharted is probably the weakest part of the series. Their combat is not spectacular.
Last of Us it was.
It
They fixed it so
was much better than The Last of Us. Yes.
Well, maybe they could just try to give it a shot at swordplay.
I think Naughty Dog could do anything well enough.
But is well enough something you come to expect of Naughty Dog.
That's true, yeah.
You know, when we talk about Naughty Dog, anybody's going to be disappointed with something that's not a 10 out of 10. You know, Uncharted 1, I think IGN, for example, gave it an 8.5. Then Uncharted 2 gets a
10.
10.
A 10. Uncharted 3 gets a 10. The Last of Us gets a 10. If they come out with something that is a 7.5, what's happened to Naughty Dog?
Yeah.
Naughty Dog's gone down the drain, you know. Which, you know, Naughty Dog's they've had a little bit of trouble over the course of the last year and a half. Amy Hennig leaving. You know, Neil Druckmann's kind of taken, Bruce Straley has taken a much bigger role in the studio, which is fine. You know, The Last of Us was directed by those two. That's the best game I've probably ever played. With the talent they have now, do you see them building up an entirely new engine? Because for swordplay, that's essentially what they're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Is build from the ground up the new engine. You know, do you see a new engine being something that they could pull off as well now, despite the talent losses they made last year, that they had last year? Try not to think too hard.
I think that they could. I mean, like I said, they can handle pretty much anything pretty well. But I think for them to to really pull something off, I think they might need to stay in the same engine that they've. I mean, don't fix what's not broke.
Right. You know, maybe take that Last of Us engine, port it straight to something else.
Yeah.
Or even take the Uncharted engine, port it straight to something else.
Yeah, because if they did have to remake a whole new engine for swordplay, I mean, swordplay doesn't play out very well in video games very much. Some games it does. But
Assassin's Creed has probably nailed that better than anything they've done is the swordplay.
Yeah, and then you got some like God of War is a very. It depends on what kind of swordplay you want. Do you want
It's a button
combo or do you want the Assassin's Creed style?
We're going to wrap it up, guys. I want to thank everybody first off for tuning in to episode 2 of the Real Games Cast presented by Adaptatory Gaming. Again, I am your host, Mitch Smith. This is the most majestic name in the business, Jordan Augustus Dean. That is Tristan Shuler. I got to think of a nickname for you for next week. We got to move on from Comedy Cadet. We can't do that anymore. But again, follow us on Twitter at Real Games Cast. Support us on Patreon if you like what we're doing. Patreon.com/RealGames. And again, you can get all our content now exclusively at DacutaryGaming.com. I'm your host, Mitch Smith. You guys enjoy your week. We are out of here.